Welcome back to the arena. Now, could 9/11 have been prevented? That's an easy question, isn't it? Did American intelligence drop the ball when monitoring al-Qaeda and bin Laden? Vanity Fair writer David Rose thinks so, and he joins me now from London. Welcome to you, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
It's an incredibly well-written piece. I hate you for doing it. But it's also, I mean, it's frightening that what you're saying is that there were many ways, pretty basic ways really, that we could have found out far more about what was being planned and maybe prevented it. Give us the thesis of the story, please.
Yes, well, before 9/11, in fact, more than 2 years before 9/11, an Afghan-American businessman and his British business partners were all ready to set up a cell phone network in Afghanistan, which in those days had no mobile phone network at all. It had a barely functioning, very rudimentary, extremely primitive landline system. It only had two landlines to the outside world. It had no functioning internet at all. And they were all ready to set up a fully fledged 2G cell phone network with internet and international phone lines. And however, they were doing this with the FBI and the National Security Agency, the American eavesdropping agency, and this would have been a cell phone network which would have allowed the West to eavesdrop on any phone call they wished to listen into in Afghanistan, to read any emails. And I think it's a fair bet that had this thing got up and running at the end of 1999, when it was all ready to go, then there's a good chance that US intelligence would have had an in to what was being planned by al-Qaeda and the Taliban before 9/11, and it might have, at the very least, have helped it join some of the other dots that we've known about for a long time through things like the 9/11 Commission, some of the other opportunities that were missed to stop 9/11. The importance of certain individuals, certain pathways of communication would have been that much more obvious. Unfortunately, what happened was that just as it was on the point of being kind of fully green-lit and getting up and running, the CIA, who had not been part of the deal, threw a spanner in the works. And for pure reasons of guarding its own turf, saying we are the principal agency that is supposed to handle foreign intelligence, they put the whole thing on ice. And by what is a really, truly bitter irony, it took nearly 2 years to resolve this, and it wasn't until a very fateful date that all the roadblocks were finally lifted, and a meeting was held in Newark, New Jersey, to get this thing up and running, to plan the next steps, and it was hoped that it could be all online by the end of 2001. Well, the date of that meeting was the 8th of September 2001, 3 days before 9/11. So all that wasted time clearly was a huge missed opportunity.
My God. This is like a sort of B-level spy movie when the agencies are all arguing with each other, internecine squabbling, and you think, well, that wouldn't happen in real life. What you're saying is, it does happen in real life.
It does happen, and actually what you had with this situation was really a number of rats fighting in a sack. There was the CIA, there was the FBI, there was the National Security Agency. There were actually two divisions within the CIA who couldn't agree as to who should run this project. And finally, there was the British intelligence agency, MI6, because there were two Brits deeply involved with this. Lord Michael Cecil, who's the brother of Viscount Cranborne, a very prominent Tory politician, and a man called Stuart Bentham, who basically had the technical expertise and experience to get this thing going. And none of these agencies could agree. All the business and technical capability was there, ready to go. The equipment was ready to be ordered. And because they just couldn't sort this out, the whole thing, well, it did eventually get up and running, but by the time it did, of course, it was far too late.
Now, when we look at the other side, the bad guys, and I think that is appropriate to use that phrase, the terrorists, those who would kill us and cut our heads off, they often seem to be ahead of the game in terms of the internet and use of psychological warfare and propaganda. It makes us wonder, what are they planning next, and are we still behind them? Do we still have to play a game of catch-up?
Well, of course, it's very difficult for me to answer that question in the sense that, I don't have access to what's happening inside US, Canadian, British intelligence now. But what I do know is, I obviously talk to people in Washington and elsewhere about what they think about the steps that have been taken since 9/11 to try to improve the lack of communication, the rivalries that clearly existed before 9/11. This cell phone project is just one egregious example among several, and indeed the 9/11 Commission report highlighted a number of others. But I was recently in DC talking to a very experienced guy, 25-year analyst with the FBI, And he was saying that, if you take it all together, the various opportunities which might, had things worked out differently, have stopped 9/11, the opportunities that weren't taken, the roads not taken, really they all suffer from they share one common characteristic, which is, and he put it, the guys in the trenches, the people actually at the front line in the war against terrorism, weren't being listened to by the bureaucracy in Washington. Now, since the 9/11 Commission report, since all the other investigations that have taken place into 9/11 over the past decade, various so-called reforms, of course, have taken place. And in Washington, perhaps the most important is the creation of the post of the Director of National Intelligence and this large bureaucracy, more than 1,200 people, that is supposed to support that individual. Well, according to my friend, he said, the thing is, what they needed was less bureaucracy. What you've actually got is another entire layer of bureaucratic paper pushing. That's actually potentially making the problem worse, not better. Now, I'm not saying that other things haven't happened that may well have speeded up the flow of information, but what is clearly the case is that the situation isn't perfect.
Well, I'd like to say that I feel better after reading the article, which is really excellent, but I feel far worse, so I don't thank you for that. But I thank you for your time. Terrific stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.